October the 2nd, 27th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Sermon on Habakkuk, chapter 1, verses 1 to 4, and chapter 2, verses 1 to 4, and Psalm 37, verses 1 to 9. Have you ever felt angry with God, disappointed, even doubting his goodness? If so, have you ever had the temerity to tell him? Generally in the scriptures, God's people are in awe of him, respectful, reverent. However, all human emotions are given space, and that is what we find in our reading from the prophet Habakkuk. We catch a glimpse of near despair in the words of this prophet. He comes close to telling God exactly what he thinks of him. Habakkuk was writing sometime after the nation of Israel had been divided, and he's addressing the southern kingdom, Judah. By this time in the nation's history, the people had turned to idolatry, neglecting God's service and indulging in every sort of unfaithful behaviour. They were no longer keeping God's law. They were burning incense to the false god Baal. There was temple prostitution, and the people sacrificed their children on pagan altars. All this besides neglecting the poor, the very core of Jewish faith. In his prophecy, Habakkuk complains to the Lord, accusing him of not listening, not saving the righteous, forcing them to witness injustice, tolerating wrongdoing. Have you ever felt like that? I have. If we read on to find God's answer, we hear that he will send the Babylonians to sweep across Judah and bring retribution. Habakkuk is not satisfied. In fact, he's appalled. It's rather as if we had complained today of the problems that beset our country, and God had said, "Never mind, I'll soon send Vladimir Putin to sort you all out." So Habakkuk complains again, this time about the Babylonians, who are pagan, ruthless people. What is God thinking about? The Babylonians are 10 times worse than the most wicked of the people of Judah. Habakkuk challenges God. What will God answer? The answer is that Habakkuk must be patient. God will send the Babylonians to discipline his people, as indeed he did when King Nebuchadnezzar invaded Jerusalem, tore down the temple, ruined the city, and took all the people of Judah into decades of exile. However, the day will come when the Babylonians themselves will suffer complete destruction, and, although Habakkuk's prophecy doesn't deal with this, one day the people will return to their land. In the meantime, though, Habakkuk and the other righteous people must be patient. God will bring about this in his own good time. The people must hold on to their faith and wait. The writer of Psalm 37 had similar thoughts to Habakkuk. This is believed to be written by King David, who was in danger from wicked men before he became king, and later had serious troubles within his own family. In this psalm, David has received counsel from God, and he shares it with us. Don't get het up because of evil people. Don't be envious of their success. Don't get angry, because one day God will deal with all evil. Like Habakkuk, we must be patient. God tells David that the wicked will fade away like green grass in the sun. They'll be wiped out. And although they might gnash their teeth at God, he'll laugh at them because their end is coming. Christians are not encouraged to gloat quite as King David did, but we can be quietly thankful that God does understand and that he has everything under control. So how do we translate this into our own time and circumstances? We certainly have plenty to complain about. We are in an unprecedented time of global warming and climate change, with some truly terrifying phenomena in the form of wildfires, floods and crop failures, mudslides, things we'd never imagined. Pollution is a serious issue, including the presence of plastic particles in just about every environment on Earth, even in our bodies. On top of that, the world's situations, including the war in Ukraine, have combined to create devastating food and fuel shortages, and such price rises as we have never experienced before. Even in our prosperous country, we're in danger of seeing people die from malnutrition and cold in this coming winter, unless our government is able to take drastic action. Furthermore, the COVID-19 pandemic is by no means over, and further pandemics are threatened because of the way in which humans have mismanaged. And all through this, God seems to be doing very little. Such difficult issues challenge our faith. It's nothing new. Jesus' disciples asked him to increase their faith, and they received quite a brusque reply. He told them they didn't need much faith, just as much as a mustard grain. And then he told them in so many words to get on with serving him and not to complain, to accept their lot. When you have done everything you were told to do, he said, you should say, we are unworthy servants. We have only done our duty. That is quite a brush off. So what do we make of all this? Once again, as in the case of Habakkuk, we have to be patient. Life as a Christian is not intended to be a picnic. Jesus warned his followers to expect persecution and suffering, to take up their cross. He said that as we see devastating things happening on the earth, we are to raise our heads, because we know our deliverance is near. When Habakkuk witnessed the injustices that herald the fall of Jerusalem, then the coming of the Babylonians who destroyed the temple and the city and took the people into a long exile, rather than feel despair, he was to see that God was finally acting to bring about his purposes for his chosen nation. And although Habakkuk probably didn't understand all the issues involved, we do now. God was shaping the nation so that they would be reunited and reformed when they returned from exile, and would be ready in God's due time to bring in the Messiah, Jesus Christ. God's purpose is often hidden from his people, and we're not privileged to see all that he's already doing for us. But we can be confident that he still has our salvation in hand, together with the restoration of this ruined earth. I want to finish with the words of Habakkuk's conclusion, once he understood God's purpose. Even facing the temporary ruin and despair of the nation, he could say this: I will wait patiently for the day of calamity to come on the nation invading us. Though the fig tree doesn't bud and there are no grapes on the vines, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God my Saviour. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to go on the heights.